What is up, Packers fans? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Before we get started today, I want to give a huge shout out to our brand new Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube members, Caleb, Matthias, Patushnig, Donnie Dong Dong, George Hogstrom, Perzio Veloso, and our brand new All-Pro member, Bobby Santoro. Thank you guys so much for signing up. Appreciate you a ton. Also want to tell you about Autograph. If you haven't checked it out yet, do so. Tons of great stuff out there. You can get all your favorite Packers articles. You can get all your favorite Packers podcasts, including Pack-A-Day, exclusive content. There is a ton out there for you. You can even get tickets there right on Autograph. So make sure to check out Autograph. Whenever you get the chance, you can utilize code Pack-A-Day to sign up for free. Super easy. Just go to the App Store, download Autograph, use code Pack-A-Day, and you are all good to go. All right, some quick news and notes before we get to our conversation with Paul Bretl. Sterling Sharpe and Mike Holmgren, both finalists for the Hall of Fame. Well overdue. Both are more than deserving. If I had to choose one, it's a little bit of a Sophie's choice here, but I would probably lean a little bit more towards Sterling Sharpe, but both are absolutely deserving of getting in. And there is a chance that I think both of them could get in. And if both do get in, you'd have to think that Green Bay might be in the running for potentially playing in the Hall of Fame game. If you have two Hall of Famers that would be in there, both Sterling Sharpe and Mike Holmgren, that would potentially lead towards a Packers presence in the Hall of Fame game. Not a guarantee. Green Bay is already hosting the draft, so maybe they'll, leave it for another team. If Eli Manning gets in, maybe Packers Giants Hall of Fame game. We'll see. But either way, should be extremely interesting to see if Holmgren and Sharpe could get in, but both well deserving, and hopefully both of them do get in this year, and we don't have to wait for any future votes or anything else. Just get them in now. And again, both would be awesome to see in there, and both certainly deserving of it. Updated injury report for both Green Bay and Detroit as we near closer and closer to kickoff on Thursday. Packers did not practice. Corey Ballantyne and Edgerrin Cooper. That was it. The huge news here, Elton Jenkins, did return to practice. So that was massive. There was, again, a little bit of a difference in the injury report for him this week where it was just listed as a knee injury. He didn't practice on that first day of practice. A little bit concerning, but on Tuesday, he did, in fact, practice. So that it was limited still, but still a great sign for Elton Jenkins for this week. But only Edgerrin Cooper and Corey Ballantyne, the only two not practicing. Limited were Jair Alexander, Kenny Clark, who was listed as just vet rest, Romeo Doubs, Josh Jacobs, Elton Jenkins, Isaiah McDuffie, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, and Colby Wooden. Romeo Doubs has not yet cleared concussion protocol, so that will be worth monitoring as we get closer to kickoff as well. John Fitzpatrick was upgraded to a full participant, and Aaron Mosby was upgraded to not being on the injury list at all. So again, Romeo Doubs not cleared. Elton Jenkins, John Fitzpatrick, and Aaron Mosby were all upgraded, and Corey Ballantyne and Edgerrin Cooper remain out. For the Lions, Taylor Decker, Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, and DJ Reader all did not practice. That's three defensive linemen and Taylor Decker. And it sounds like Taylor Decker is not going to play in this game, while Onwuzurike, Pascal, and Reader might be a little bit more towards game time decisions. But it seems like Decker will, in fact, be out. We'll get a better designation as we get closer to the game. Limited was Emmanuel Mosley, and then Carlton Davis moved up to a full participant. Now, of course, we know that the Packers know how to bounce back from tough hits. And if you've been hit with an injury after an accident, the team of highly skilled personal injury attorneys at Habish, and Rotier can help you receive the right compensation to help you bounce back from your injury. Habish has been successfully resolving claims for over 90 years, and their attorneys have the experience and expertise to get you back in the game. And when you call Habish, you're going to talk to a lawyer directly. It's easy. Their number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH. Of course, you can also visit their website at habish.com. Habish, Habish and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. And now it's just right about that time to talk to Paul Bretl. Let's get after it. We are joined now by Paul Bretl. You can find him, of course, on ESPN Lacrosse and on Twitter at Paul_Bretl. Paul, great to be back chatting with you. We're going to talk a little Packers Dolphins. We'll, of course, break down Packers Lions as well. But before we get there, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm excellent, Andy. Always happy to be here with you talking Packers football, and crazy stretch we're on right now. Short week and then back-to-back Thursday games. I mean, can't even imagine what the coaches and players are going through right now.
No, we were talking a little bit about that offline, and yeah, it is a hectic, crazy stretch. Anytime you get that Sunday to Thursday, and then of course you have the interesting Thursday to Thursday. You also have 4 consecutive primetime games as of right now. I don't know. I was looking at this the other day. I know they made the change to the Thursday night game the week of Packers Saints. I was looking at. I do believe they still have the ability to flex Green Bay out of that Monday night game. I don't think they're going to, but that would be one potentially that maybe could get flexed back. And then, but the week after against Minnesota could be one that's flexed back into like either way, it's going to be a ton of primetime games. And yeah, it's a very unique and interesting schedule. You kind of started the year with all these Sunday noon games and you kind of get into a rhythm, and all of a sudden it's Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and it's just all over the place. But they are clearly adjusting very, very well. They've won 7 of 8, obviously 3 in a row coming off the bye week, and now have this massive game coming up against Detroit. Before we get to Detroit, let's just kind of go over Packers Dolphins just a little bit. I know we're obviously putting that one to bed for the most part, but I always love to get kind of your key takeaways from it. What were your key takeaways from that game?
Yeah, big thing for me was the defensive side of the ball and the Packers' performance. Because coming into that game with Tua at quarterback for Miami, their previous 5 games, I mean, they were averaging, I think, 29 points per game. They had scored over 30 in 3 of those games. I mean, that was an offense that was rolling. And I know at the end of the game, Tua was efficient. I know they put up a lot of yards. But in that first half, right, where the game was really unfolding, Packers defense was doing a terrific job. And coming into that game, the players talked about it. Obviously, we can look at the metrics, but Tua got the ball out of his hands coming into that game at the quickest rate in football. I think like 2.3 seconds. But what the Packers did defensively, coverage-wise, the linebackers, what Halfley dialed up, I thought he did a terrific job of, and the players obviously, of taking away those initial reads. Because you could see sitting up there in the press box, you could see Tua looking, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one. And that's not normal for that Dolphins offense. That ball is out of Tua's hands. LaFleur talked about how terrific he is at just anticipating where his receivers are going to be, trusting them, and then hitting the top of his drop and letting the ball rip. But there were several instances where those reads weren't there. The Packers were taking them away. And then so what's the trickle-down effect of that? You see the pass rush. You see the pass rush start to get after Tua. They put up 5 sacks in that game. And then just overall the complementary football component of it, jumping out to an early lead like they did against San Francisco. And that's important, obviously. Obviously, we want to do that every week, right? But it's important when you're going up against a Christian McCaffrey, a Devin Achane, very, very dynamic running backs, because now if you're the offense, the opposing offense who's trailing, we've heard LaFleur talk about this from the Packers' perspective. When you fall down early, your game plan that you go into the week with kind of takes a back seat, right? It goes out the window a little bit because now, well, we're playing catch up. We're playing from behind. And so the Packers' ability to play complementary football, the offense to take an early lead, provided the defense with some help as well. Again, allowing the pass rush to pin its ears back and taking away their ability to lean on the run game. Because the Dolphins entered that game, I think, ranked 8th in rush attempts per game. And I think total they had maybe, I don't even remember, 13, 14 carries. Wasn't a lot. So, really prime example of the benefit of complementary football. But I think the Packers taking away those initial reads, and then when the ball did come out, swarming to whoever had the ball. Great job getting hats on the ball to limit those yards after the catch, which Miami's so good at picking up.
You look at Miami's passing offense in this game, and I kind of talked about immediately following the game. It just felt like a lot of empty calories. Like, yeah, he was efficient and he was getting the ball to his, open guys eventually, but it didn't lead to a whole lot. And Xavier McKinney talked about it a little bit as well of like, hey, you guys want to just do the little dink and dunk thing? We're just going to win. Like you're not going to beat us that way. Our offense is going to outscore you in those situations. We'll kind of clamp down in the red zone. We'll do what we need to do. Good luck to you in that. And it felt like, to an extent, Green Bay's like, we're going to stop the run. We're going to stop Hill and Waddle. And if you want to be Jonnu Smith merchants through the course of this game, that's not taking anything away from Jonnu Smith, who I think is actually a really good player. But like, if you want to just try to beat us with Jonnu Smith all game, awesome. Like, we will absolutely take that. There's going to be a limit to the yards after the catch in the middle of the field and what Jonnu Smith can do. If we stopped your run game and we stopped Hill and Waddle to a large extent, we're going to come out of this feeling like we have a great chance to win the game. And yeah, they allowed a lot of completions over the middle of the field, and Jonnu Smith and some of those guys did live in that middle area, but they were very strategic about what they were willing to allow. And I think sometimes that was what was lacking in previous regimes and in previous defenses, is just you have to take away what they want to go with. and what their go-tos are, and really making it so that you're dictating terms of who's going to have to beat you. And they were very clearly not going to let the running game beat them. They were very clearly not going to allow Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle beat them. And it was going to be up to the rest of the supporting cast to put together a good enough game to beat Green Bay. They couldn't do it. And I thought it was a fantastic game plan. We talked about last week, Paul, of like, what are you going to try to emphasize? Do you want to take away the running game? Do you want to take away Hill and Waddle? Do you want to take away the quick passing game? It's hard to do all of it. And what they sort of settled upon was, we think we can take away the first read. We think we can take away the outside wide receivers. And we think we can take away the running game. We're going to allow a lot over that middle, but we're going to live with it. And it really, really played out well.
Yeah, and one other point I want to make is the linebacker position. Quay Walker, another really, really good game. Isaiah McDuffie, like that unit these last 2 weeks has been playing really, really good football, contributing to just obviously the overall success that they're having. And one thing I just want to mention, because McKinney talked about it after the game when asked about Quay Walker, he spoke incredibly highly of him, which, you know, you would expect teammates to do, but it was different in the sense of how deep into that he went, specifically saying he doesn't think there's anything that Quay Walker can't do. He thinks he's that gifted of a middle linebacker. And McKinney provided some context around, again, just some of the up and down play we've seen from Quay this season. One, he's a third-year player going through a scheme change, and he's the new, or not anymore, but coming into the season, a new Mike linebacker. McKinney said he was the Mike, I think, during a few games during his time with the New York Giants. And he said, it's no joke, man. Like, that is a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder. You know, obviously it's the defensive play call, but then it's making sure everyone's aligned correctly. What's the offense adjustments making? What adjustments do we have to make to counter that? You know, in the 5-10 seconds before the ball snapped, the play ensues, and then you start it all over again. So you have a young player in a new scheme taking on a role that has a lot on his plate. And I thought that was just really, I think, important perspective, right? To kind of, you know, add some context to, again, the up and down play that we've seen from Quay this season. And what we're seeing from him this last 2 weeks, Hafley talked about it, Quay mentioned it after the game, the preparation that's going into it. I mean, Hafley said he's a man on a mission. The meeting rooms on the practice field these last 2 games. And for Quay, who said, you know, I sometimes get in my own way, maybe overthink too much on the football field. We're seeing someone who's just confident, fast, physical, and reacting. And I think a lot of times in sports, football, we can equate that to the what went into the week, right? You know what you're supposed to do. You know where you're supposed to be. You're not thinking, it plays just unfolding and boom, you're going. So Quay Walker, linebacker unit as a whole, big part of their success the last 2 games.
I think there's a lot of similarities between quarterback on offense and what that middle linebacker has to do on defense. I don't think it's quite as extreme as everything that's on the quarterback's plate, but to an extent, not only all the things that you just mentioned of having to get everyone aligned, get the play call in, make sure that everyone's in the right spot, and get everything set up at the onset of the play, but we are living in a league right now that more than ever is doing everything that they can to specifically mess, obviously with everyone on defense to some extent, but specifically the eye candy for those linebackers to get them just to take one false step one way or the other, because Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel and really, you know, any offensive coordinator or play caller worth their while as a coordinator, they know if they can get those linebackers to take one false step, it's advantage offense. And so they are using motions and orbits and every play action and bootlegs and everything they can to get a linebacker just to take a tiny, small step one wrong direction. And all of a sudden it can be a big play the other way. So to go through all of the pre-snap stuff and then a post-snap world in which it is as chaotic as it has ever been in the history of the NFL, to specifically get those specific linebackers to do things that they're not supposed to do, and then to be able to still go and react and make football and then make a play against some of the most dynamic players in the world right now at tight end, running back, and wide receiver that are able to make even the best of the best miss in the open field or make you take a poor angle. It is a very, very difficult position. And I will be the first to admit I've been very, I think, hard on Quay, but I think in a reasonable way. But man, is it awesome to see him, quite frankly, just shut people like myself up and say, no, I got this. I can do this. I can play at a high level. I said it earlier this week, there's nobody I'm looking forward to watching play more against Detroit than Quay Walker, to see if he can kind of continue this, because it does feel like he is playing a different style of football these past couple weeks. And if he can continue that, like if you even go from the Quay Walker that we saw against Chicago in some of his tough games to even just solid, good Quay Walker, like that is such a step in the right direction and can really help the middle of that defense. And we kind of saw it over these past 2 games, not only from the pressure that he was helping create. I think 4 pressures this past week against Miami, the run defense where he was more aggressive and getting some tackles for loss over the past couple weeks. Even in his rough game against Chicago, I think he had a tackle for loss or 2. And then, just again, playing I think in coverage, he's had some really good games as well. So I'm with McKinney in that I don't think there's anything he can't do. Now it's just showing that he can do it consistently. And we saw a little bit of proof of concept these past couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up just what the 49ers and Dolphins offenses do, because I wrote about before those games from the defensive perspective. I mean, the linebacker position for Green Bay was going to be put to the absolute test. And, it's going to be true to the similar extent this week against Detroit. So having those level of performances against those offenses that, again, throw so much at you pre-snap, again, just another impressive element to their play.
Very much so. And kind of in the same context of this defense kind of hitting its stride, it does seem like the pass rush is showing up a little bit more as well. Again, I want to see it against Detroit this week against a very good Lions offensive line, and we'll again sort of see if there's something to this or if it was just maybe some favorable matchups or whatever it might be, maybe a couple good weeks. But it does feel like a couple of these guys along the defensive line are starting to hit their stride a little bit more, and we're starting to see a little bit more pressure up front.
Yeah, like we talked about last week, that forced fumble for Lucas Van Ness and the process that went into that play unfolding, you were hoping was kind of a sign of the growth and development that was there, and he built upon that momentum with a couple other big plays against Miami. Rashawn Gary, Halfley spoke about this before the Miami game. I mean, he's been building for a steady month now. I think we've been seeing more consistent, steady, impactful play from him and that group as a whole. I mean, we talked about it so much leading up to the bye week, and I wrote about this over at ESPN Lacrosse, but Pro Football Focus has their pass rush productivity metric, which essentially is just an efficiency metric. How often do you get after the quarterback relative to the number of snaps you have? And then it's weighted a little bit more heavily towards sacks. And I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but through the first 9 weeks, I think Rashawn Gary was the highest rated Packers defensive end in that category. And I think he ranked in the 80s among all defensive ends.
Wasn't great.
Since the bye week, again, 3 games, Lucas Van Ness, I think, is top 10 right now. Again, he's having a lot of high impact plays with those sacks. Rashawn Gary's in the 22nd range. Brenton Cox is in the 37th range. I think Ineg Bari's in the 45-50 range. And keep in mind, this is out of the league. So that's like 120, 130 eligible edge rushers. So we're seeing it with our eyes. The metrics are showing it that they're starting to pick up some steam. And Halfley talked about it on Monday. Yes, I'm confused with these days as well. That just getting into the new, again, it's a new system for everyone. And just as it gets deeper into the season, you get more comfortable with what your responsibilities are. And I think also, too, we can go back to the complementary football component of it. Your offense is out to an early multi-score lead. They're not running the ball as heavily. The opponent's trying to play catch up. There's more obvious, predictable passing situations where you can just pin your ears back and go. So, as always in the game of football, and that's what makes it such a beautiful sport. There's so many layers that go into what we see as the final product. But this group is, again, everything just mentioned, they're picking up steam. And I've said this all season. For this defense to reach its ceiling, whatever that is, it starts up front. That group is going to dictate how good this defense can be. And like you said, big test upcoming against Detroit. One, just because our offensive line is so good. Their run game is so good, and they get that going as we know that they can do. Defense is at a disadvantage when the offense is in short down and distance situations. And then just between the run game, the play action, the screens, the misdirections, the motions, I mean, just what's baked into what this Detroit offense does, like it's innately just more difficult to get a pass rush against that group because of all those different elements. There aren't a lot of those pin your ear back situations. There's a lot of, deciphering the eye candy, getting ready for the run game, and just being mindful of everything else that's taking place. So good step in the right direction, obviously, but again, big test ahead.
I think one of the big things too is they had about the worst possible scenario last time they faced Detroit, getting down 24-3 early in that game, and Detroit's just going to dictate after that. Like it is hard if you have like a 14-3 lead, against Detroit. They're still going to be able to dictate to some extent. Like they're that good that they can still get what they want in those situations. And being down 24-3, you are going to become one-dimensional. They're going to have everything at their disposal that they want to run, and that's a bad place to be in. And I think, what the other thing defensively when it comes to pass rush, I agree with you and everything that you said, specifically if they want to reach their ceiling, it's going to come down to this defensive front. And can they get home with 4 against good offensive lines come playoff time? I will actually say, I think it's actually very impressive what this Packers defense has done so far, considering that front has not been quite up to standard so far. I think if you're looking for still some, I don't know if it's good news or bad news, I guess, but like Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, LVN, Enigbar, I still think there's a lot more there that these guys have shown even in the past. I'm not even necessarily projecting and saying this is what they could be. I think just what we've seen in the past of what they can be. I still think there's another layer there, especially I think Devontae Wyatt still has a lot to add that I'm hoping at some point we start seeing a little bit more of that. And Kenny Clark, we know what he's capable of. So I'm still hopeful that there is another layer to this. But again, I've said it 1,000 times this week. This week is going to be the test for a lot of groups. And I think this team as a whole, just to see where they really are at. And that defensive front, hopefully coming into their own at the right time and can win some of those one-on-one matchups against the Lions offensive line. They're going to need to.
Yep, absolutely.
Switch it to the offensive side. I want to talk about Jordan Love and specifically about something that you wrote about and taking the big play, which is the check down, of course. It's not necessarily the 80-yard throws down the field or whatever it might be. It is the check downs that are more and more available to quarterbacks throughout the course of the league as they try to. There's a couple things that are happening. One, obviously, defenses are really set upon not giving up those big plays defensively. Keeping everything in front of you, rallying, tackling, very in vogue. It's not, I think it's a little bit different than maybe some of the just too high shell, bend but don't break that we've seen in some previous seasons, but there's still very much a version of we want to make sure that anything down the field is covered up and we're willing to allow, again, some of the check down stuff, but also what we're seeing a ton more of from offenses is the chipping from the running back and the tight end on both of those defensive ends, one on each side, so that you're getting really across the line, almost 2 bodies on every, if they're rushing 4, like 2 bodies on everyone throughout the course of that pass rush at some point where, again, you're chipping the ends, the guards are helping inside, the tackles get that help from the chips. And like all of a sudden you look at the defensive tackles, the defensive ends, and there's nobody that really gets that true one-on-one through the course of their pass rush, which makes it incredibly difficult for some of these pass rushers to try to get home. But what happens is you're chipping on the ends, and then of course your tight end and your running back are either going to the flat or doing a little curl on a check down, and there's 2 guys that are available on that. So you're kind of going through a 3-man route down the field, hoping that you can get something to open up, that if you get the right matchup against the right coverage, you can take advantage of it. But if not, inherently you almost have 2 checkdowns on every play because of how teams are playing. But it has become such a important aspect. And I have to think it's why Goody really prioritized somebody like Josh Jacobs, who can break some of those tackles and have the run after the catch ability. Why he prioritized a guy like Tucker Kraft in the 3rd round, even though he had already drafted Luke Musgrave in the 2nd round. Like, it just, having those guys that can break tackles and run after the catch is so insanely important to the modern NFL, because teams are giving you the checkdowns a lot of times and they're not allowing you those big explosive plays down the field.
Yeah, when it comes to those checkdowns, again, in theory and what we see just looks like a simple play. But one thing I'm sure I've mentioned on here before, but one thing that just stuck with me since last season is Tom Clement's comments on Jordan Love. And when that turnaround took place last season, it wasn't the improved accuracy, it wasn't the improved downfield ability that he brought to the offense. It was things really started to turn around from him when he knew when to take the check down. Because if we zoom out, what does that mean? It shows the comfort and understanding of one within the offense, but what the defense is doing to you, right? Knowing and deciphering in real time when to push the ball, when to take those opportunities, and when to say, all right, I'm just going to dump it off and take what's available, get my 5-6 yards. And if we get a big play out of it, great. And so I think the improved groove that we're finding the offense in, the decision making from Jordan Love. Again, I think that check down is a key component of it, because it goes into the process that he's going through at the quarterback position that's getting him to, which shows, again, the comfort and just where this offense is at from an execution standpoint. So I think that element in itself, just the willingness to do it and knowing when to do it, is really, really important to this offense, again, beginning to find its groove right now. And then to your point, when you're dumping off to guys like Tucker Kraft, who has made it well known, he has zero intentions of ever being tackled by the first guy that comes at him. Yep. And Josh Jacobs, I mean, his ability to make defenders miss at the line of scrimmage as a ball carrier in this confined space is just ridiculous. One of the best in football at missed tackles force, one of the best at football in yards after contact. And then when you're getting him the ball in space where he's got 5-6 yards around him, this already strength of his that you have, his ability to make guys miss, you're just enhancing it because now he's got an open field in front of him. Now he's, he's not in this confined space anymore. So you're playing to a strength of Josh Jacobs, a strength of Tucker Kraft. And again, from how the offense operates, a process standpoint of Jordan Love, it shows someone who's, again, operating the offense at a really high level. Because again, Matt LaFleur said after each of these last 2 games, he really, really likes where Jordan Love is playing or how Jordan Love is playing right now. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to that decision-making component of it. And as we saw against the Dolphins, and we talked about it last week, this might not have been a game where against this secondary, there was going to be a ton of shot plays because the Miami secondary has been good about taking those away. But when you run the ball successfully, you take advantage of those checkdowns that come to you, what happens? Defense starts to creep up a little bit. They got to start stopping those plays. And then what do? You find Christian Watson one-on-one down the right sideline. Opens up those downfield opportunities, again, knowing when to take advantage of them. So really, really big for just the offense as a whole and how it's operating.
I love the last part that you added in. I was just about to hit on that, is knowing when to take advantage of those, because you can also go too far in the check down direction and get the moniker of you're just checking down all the time, or you're just a check down merchant or things like that, where you don't really want to be in that world either. And you want to take what the defense is giving to you, right? And a lot of times that is going to be the check down, but you can't just kind of like Xavier McKinney said about the other team, like you're just going to check stuff down all day. We win. We're going to win in that scenario. And that is like for the defense, if you're just doing that all day long, more often than not, the defense is winning in that scenario. So knowing when to attack down the field, knowing when to take those check downs and live to see, not only just live to see another down, because the biggest play in this game, the Josh Jacobs big 40+ yard play, was on a check down. So it's not just living to see another down. It's just, knowing like, hey, I don't have anything down the field on this play. I'm going to take my check down and see if my guy can do the heavy lifting with the run after the catch. And again, the awesome part about this offense is they have guys in Tucker Kraft and Josh Jacobs that can do that and either make the first guy miss or just run through their face and pick up positive yards with it. It's working, and I'm with you. I think that's a huge reason why this offense is hitting its stride.
Yeah, and I think another component to just the improved play, the accuracy that we're seeing from Jordan Love is he's healthier right now. Again, you're never going to point to injuries as, and Jordan Love has said that his, when he's on the field, he's expected to play at a high level, right? But having that mobility back changes how Matt LaFleur has called some of the plays, more the under center, the play action, and not even him escaping the pocket, but Matt LaFleur's talked about just how he's navigating the pocket again without the knee injury, without the groin injury affecting him, I think is another big element to what we've seen from the offense out of this second half.
No, I think so too. And I think the other interesting thing about this offense as well is for the first time in a while, this is a team that seems very dedicated to running the football almost regardless of results. And I think we really saw that this past week where, Josh Jacobs is getting 2 yards per carry. We don't care. We're going to keep running the football. And I think it opened up things for other aspects of the game, the deep shots down the field, the passing attack, some of the play action stuff, as well as allowing, it just so happened that in this game, it was Jaden Reed, Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks who had the big run plays to kind of still get you to 100+ yards and over a 4-yard average on the ground. But it was a tough day sledding for Josh Jacobs in the running attack. No hesitation whatsoever. We're going to keep going back to it. And I think, again, talking about are we just going to keep taking the checkdowns over and over? You don't want to get to the point of just, running into a wall every time and just wasting downs. But at the same time, you could see how valuable that rushing attack was still to Green Bay in that game, despite the fact that it was still only getting 2 yards per carry when you were handing to Josh Jacobs. So I love the fact that they are leaning on the run so heavily. They are so creative, whether it's out of shotgun, pistol, or under center. They've got totally different run games dependent upon what sort of formation they're in, what type of running back they have in the game. They're able to be extremely multiple in that regard. And I just love the fact that they are sticking with it no matter what. And if you didn't know better, there were times where you would say this is a run first team, which for Matt LaFleur with a quarterback like Jordan Love and all these weapons, you'd be like, that's blasphemous. But at times it kind of feels that way. And I kind of love it.
Yeah. They're definitely, as the season gone along, just adapted to what they've needed to do in given the specific game and matchup. And I think to your point, obviously you don't want to become just, run it straight ahead every time. But man, Matt LaFleur does such a great job of week to week building these run concepts off of each other, taking one thing from a few weeks ago and just tweaking it slightly. So all of a sudden a running lane opens up and now there's a big gap for Josh Jacobs. Or what you show in the run game in the first quarter, you're showing again in quarter three, but now it's a passing play, right? That illusion of complexity that we hear Matt LaFleur talk about. So run game is absolutely the blueprint for the offense's success. And you highlighted a number of just positive trickle down effect that takes place when, even if you're not picking up, again, 5-6 yards per carry, but the defense thinks you're going to run the ball, or you have a player of Josh Jacobs' caliber in the backfield who now they have to be concerned with. And I think it was after the 49ers game, Tucker Kraft said, when Josh Jacobs is running like that, when we're ahead of the sticks, the entire playbook is open to this Packers team. And that's what makes this group so dangerous, right? If they're in a 2nd and 5, they could run the ball, they could go deep, they could dump it off, they could do play action. I mean, they can really do anything in that situation. And so circling back to the check down component of it, because even through all the ups and downs Green Bay had at the up to the bye week, this was still one of the best offenses in football generating big plays. Yep. So now you have that ability, plus efficiency, plus a run game. If you're a defense, and again, you come into the game, what are we going to take away? What are we going to focus on? I mean, good luck, because there's just a number of different ways that this Packers team can hurt you. But again, to your point, a lot of that starts with being successful on the run game, because even early on in the year, even for an offense with Jordan Love, LaFleur, so many pass catching options, if you're living in long down and distance situations, that's just a tough way to find consistency in the NFL, almost regardless of who you have on offense and the talent that's there. You're just at such a disadvantage in those situations.
Now, if you could only eliminate all the procedural penalties on all sides of the ball, imagine what you could be a superpower at that point. That's what we're going to need against Detroit this week, is eliminate those little silly mistakes and make sure that you're playing your best football coming up this week. And that kind of leads us into Packers Lions. Your keys to this game and what you're kind of going to kind of be watching for in this one.
I mean, the big one, the run defense against David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's where it really all starts. I mean, we saw it in the last time these two teams played. The Lions offense is just such a well-oiled machine. I mean, you pick up 5-6 yards on first down. Now you can run it again, or again, you can take the shot play. They can utilize play action like they often do, or just run your series of crossers because the defense is spread out defending both the run and the pass. You hit that first down, repeat the process, mix in some shot plays here and there, like just such a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine. So how do you attempt to disrupt that? You got to get them, again, behind the sticks, or at least not operating in so many 2nd and 3rd and short situations. Because for the Packers defense, if that's the world you're going to be living in against this offense, that's just tough. We'll just leave it at that. So you have to find a way to contain Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then when you get the Lions in those passing situations, you got to get after Jared Goff. I mean, his numbers, according to Pro Football Focus, from a clean pocket, I think he's completing almost 80% of his throws this season. It's averaging like 9.5 yards per pass attempt. I mean, just absolutely lights out. And pressuring him doesn't guarantee success either. Let's just get that out of the way as well. But there's a big difference between an 80% completion rate and I think a 58% completion rate. So you'll obviously take the latter. So gotta find a way to contain Montgomery and Gibbs. Again, not an easy task whatsoever. Their offensive line, just their ability with the motion, the misdirection, everything they throw at defenses, and then each of their individual skill sets and just making guys miss. Montgomery more the physical runner, Gibbs more the speed, the burst, but both really good in their own ways of generating big plays. So for me, that's where it starts in this game. I think obviously for the defense, but I think just as a whole for this Packers team to be able to go into Detroit and find a way to keep it close and come away with a win.
Yeah, you're looking for the defense to set the tone in this one. And I do think two key injuries to keep an eye on here, because I think they could play massive roles. I think, first of all, Taylor Decker, their left tackle, like that offensive line is so good and has no real weak points. And Dan Skipper's a more than capable fill in at left tackle there, but that's a totally different ball game than if Taylor Decker's in there. Decker did not practice on Monday. Paul and I are recording this a little bit earlier on Tuesday, so we have not seen the Tuesday, injury updates quite yet, but that would be a massive loss for Detroit if he can't go in some way, and could really give them an opportunity to have that weaker spot. We saw Rashawn Gary play right defensive end a lot against, just to get Decker instead of Penei Sewell Well, now again, with Dan Skipper in there, potentially that would give them another point to attack with Rashawn Gary. So I'm interested in that. And then on the other side, of course, Jair Alexander, in if he can go and give you somebody that can match up a little bit better with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I know it's easier said than done to get those two matched up against each other because they'll put Amon-Ra in the slot, they'll move him around, they'll motion him and do everything else. So it's not quite as simple as just being like, yeah, well, let's just put John on Amon-Ra every game. Also, that's a tough task for anyone coming back from injury after a long time off. Just be like, yeah, just shut down one of the best wide receivers in football the entirety of the game. But it just gives you a little bit more options there if Jair is able to play. And I think it gives you, some more matchups, even if it's Jair versus Jamison Williams as well, potentially being able to take that aspect of it away and maybe spend a little bit more attention on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So either way, I think Jair, if he can go in this game, is such a huge win for Green Bay's defense. And if Taylor Decker is out, that would be a huge loss for Detroit's offense, and vice versa. If Decker can go and Jair can't go, a huge advantage for Detroit there too. So I think injuries on that side of the ball, but those two in particular, could play a huge role in this game.
Well said.
Let's go to, just kind of how Green Bay wins this game. So if I told you Green Bay finds a way to come up with a win, obviously we can always point to turnovers and red zone efficiency and things like that. There's the obvious ones, but what is Green Bay going to have to really do to set the tone and come away out of Detroit with a win and still have an opportunity to maybe win this NFC North?
I think the offense has to get off to a fast start in this game. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we expect Green Bay to jump out to 10 or even a 14-point lead, but put up points early on in this game so your defense isn't playing from that deficit. Because, again, everything we just talked about with the run game and how just a well-oiled machine the Lions offense is, you give that unit and that unit takes an early lead and the Packers offense falls behind 7-0, 10-0, whatever it might be. I mean, that just puts your defense at a massive disadvantage. So Green Bay needs to get off to a fast start. And like we've seen in recent weeks, lean on the run game, lean on Josh Jacobs. That's going to open up opportunities in the passing game to take advantage of. And when those opportunities happen, can't miss them, right? This is a Lions team. They're 11-1. They play such efficient football. You have to have a clean game, right? If there's a downfield opportunity, you got to hit on it. You can't have silly pre-snap penalties that put you in those long down and distance situations. So offense needs to come out swinging. And like we talked about defensively, got to find a way to contain Gibbs and Montgomery. I'm
going to even take it a step further. 28-0 down to Minnesota, 24-3 down to Detroit, even down 13-7 to Chicago, I think in the second or third quarter in that game. You got to flip the script here. You've had basically been punched in the mouth by the three NFC North teams in your three games so far, where they've come out as the better team early in the game. You were able to get away with it against Chicago and come up with a win at the very end of that game with a blocked field goal attempt at that point. But there was, as much as they did to come back from 28-0 to Minnesota, and I give them credit for doing so, it was probably pretty much lost at 28-0. And they really never got close to Detroit once going down 24-3. And basically the game was over kind of at that point as well. I want to see the reverse. I want to see Green Bay do the punching in the mouth in this one. And we saw, what was it against the Texans for Detroit? Like, the Texans had a really big lead in that game. They got 5 interceptions from Jared Goff, and the Lions still won that game. So, you have to be the one that's the aggressor and the one that's punching in the mouth. And then you cannot just rest on let's hold on for dear life. You have to keep attacking over and over and play with consistency throughout the entirety of the game. So I want to see Green Bay come out being the aggressor in this one. And then it's lame and cliche at this point, but this needs to be one of those all gas, no brakes games. I don't care if you're up by, 17 points in the fourth quarter, keep pressing, because this Lions team has a way of finding points out of thin air, and they'll come back on you in a heartbeat. So get off to that fast lead and then do not let up. Keep attacking over and over and over again. Yeah, we've seen a more, I think, all around just physical Green Bay Packers team this season. We talked about it in the run game. I think the success that they're having against the run defensively in recent weeks starts with the interior defensive line and just the push, the physicality that they're playing with, the linebackers fighting through blocks, getting to the line of scrimmage. That quality, that element, that physicality is going to be magnified this week against this Detroit Lions team. That's going to need to be a key part of just the Packers play style. Like you said, their aggressiveness and how they come out swinging out of the gate. So
the physicality that they've established this season, got to build upon that against Detroit.
Yeah, I think so too. And as Matt mentioned at the end of last game, it needs to be in all three phases. It needs to be offense, defense, and special teams. I thought Josh Jacobs set the tone in the last couple games, running hard and physical right out of the gates and just saying like, this is the way that we're going to play. I think everyone kind of took his lead and he led by example and everyone kind of took to it. We saw it, again, really over the past few games is them playing a lot more physical. So it's going to be a different, again, ball game against Detroit, who will out physical just about anyone. That's why I'm so excited for this one, because I do think you have two physical teams playing very great football. It still seems weird to say like Green Bay won 7 of their last 8. I don't even know that I necessarily feel like it's been that decisive, but it has been. They're 7-1 in their last 8 games, with that lone loss, of course, being against the Detroit Lions. So they're going to have the opportunity to atone for that this week and make it 8 out of 9. The big question, Paul, is will they be able to make it 8 out of 9? What is your prediction for Packers Lions in this one?
Packers offense, Packers defense, they're finding their groove right now. I mean, we talked about really all aspects of it, and this is a more efficient, a more effective, I think a better Packers team than a month ago when they played the Detroit Lions. But on the road, I'm very much I need to see it, right? I need to see them have that type of 3-phase complete game against what is the top team in the NFC right now. So I, for the reasons mentioned, the recent play we've seen from the Packers, I certainly think there's a path to victory, but I need to see it happen first. So right now I'm going to pick the Lions to win this one.
Totally fair. I think Green Bay needs to win either against Minnesota or Detroit on the road in the regular season to get that just confidence of going, because they're likely going to have to go 3 games on the road in the playoffs in all likelihood, even if they go 5-0, which again, in that case, it's much ado about nothing because they won both of those games on the road, right? They're going to have that confidence going in for sure. But even if they go undefeated, they're like somewhere around like 35% chance to win the NFC North, even in that scenario. So they're likely going to have to go on the road, 3 games in a row in order to make it to a Super Bowl. I think they need to show either again on the road against Detroit or on the road against Minnesota that they are capable of doing that. I don't think there's any shame if they were to lose this game. It depends. Like if they go down 24-3 again and get punched in the face and just don't show up at the beginning, that will be of I think a lot more concern to me. If this is a back and forth, absolute beatdown brawl between the two teams and Detroit comes up with like a 3-point win at the end or something like that, that there can be a lot of positives that you take out of that, even in a loss. And I think there are, quite frankly, I think there's still some things that this young Green Bay team has to learn. And maybe it takes another loss to Detroit to really be like, all right, we've got to find a way to correct these things if we want to be the best team. Right now, Detroit has our number, and you're probably going to see them again in the playoffs. So I don't think there's anything that is going to completely be demoralizing in that aspect. I think, again, a loss against Detroit's not the worst thing in the world. It's not really going to change much. You're probably going to be the 5, 6, or 7 seed in the playoffs and the wild card anyway. But I would really love to see them come out, be the aggressor, punch in the face. And Paul, I'm going Packers in this one. I think they are going to be the aggressor. I do think they're going to come away with the win. And I think this has game of the year potential written all over it. And I hope it lives up to that standard.
Certainly hope you're right.
Should be a ton of fun. All right, what do you got cooking up on ESPN Lacrosse? And you're basically coming out with a new awesome article every single day. So what do you got cooking right now?
I appreciate that. Yeah. So a lot of the topics we discussed: pass rush, run defense, check downs. Today talking about the Packers, Jordan Love's decision making and that being tested this week against the Lions secondary that features Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and all those different elements as well. And also, we fired back up the old YouTube channel.
Can I ask you about that?
Hit subscribe. Channel name, very creative. Paul Bretl, Bretl.
It's been really, really good. And I appreciate you trying to steal all my viewers, but no, go check him out. He's absolutely fantastic. And I did see the YouTube channel get fired back up. I was super excited. Somebody was complaining in the comments the other day about the show. And I'm like, there's a lot of other great stuff out there. Go check out Paul Bretl's channel. Go check out Pax What She Said TV. There's a lot of amazing stuff out there. So if you get sick of me, by all means, head over to Paul. And you don't even do that. Just watch both every single day. That's the best case scenario. So Paul's absolutely killing it, either at ESPN Lacrosse or over on his YouTube channel. You can find him, of course, on Twitter at Paul_Bretl. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. That's going to do it for Paul and I today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.